Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to start this next part of the course. It's going to deal with science fiction and aliens. And so far, except for Morgan and Mindy, we haven't really tackled that promise of the course title much yet. In particular, we're going to talk about aliens and posthumanism. Now, to help you guys get a handle on what I mean by posthumanism, let's do a quick refresher on evolutionary theory, which we first encountered with H.P. Lovecraft's The Rats in the Walls. As you remember, evolutionary theory holds that life advances by a process of natural selection. Now, even if most scientists nowadays don't actually agree with Darwin's particular version of evolution, they still accept that some version of evolution is probably true. So over time, biological life forms will grow more complex, improving, advancing, and in a story like The Rats in the Walls, that's where the horror is supposed to come in. Lovecraft basically he's wondering what would happen if evolution went backwards rather than forwards. In other words, de-evolution. But Lovecraft was looking at the past. What if we, instead, of course, look towards the future? The future is science fiction's bread and butter. Evolutionary theory, furthermore, allows some pretty interesting possibilities. Think about it this way. According to the theory of evolution, every species has its precursors. So, for humanity, Australopithecus. Fine. What species, though, will humanity someday be the precursor to? What comes after human beings in the evolutionary chain? As you can imagine, science fiction loves asking these kinds of questions. And that's what we're going to talk about when we talk about posthumanism. What comes after humans? Now, that switch when humanity is suddenly superseded on the evolutionary chain. That's what some theorists like to call the singularity. That moment when people stop being people and become something more advanced entirely. That's the hard singularity. So, let's keep things simple. In general, there are two kinds. There's a soft singularity and a hard one. Theorists who favor a soft singularity, they argue that since evolution is such a glacially slow process, singularity, if it happens, is going to happen at some point millions of years in the future, down the road. That's actually the version of posthumanism that you get in Day Million, that story by Frederick Pohl. And it's also the version of posthumanism you get in the song In the Year 2525 by Zager and Evans. Those are soft singularities, something that happens long after our great-grandchildren have passed away into the dust. Now, hard singularity. As you may have guessed, if the soft singularity is something that happens in the far distant future, then the hard singularity is something that's just around the corner, something that maybe might even happen in our own lifetimes. And actually, one of the most famous theorists of the hard singularity is this guy named Vernor Vinge, who's a highly lauded science fiction writer. He was also a professor of mathematics and computer science at San Diego State University. And in 1993, he was giving this talk at a symposium sponsored by NASA, and he makes the following astounding claim. Within 30 years, he says, we will have the technological means to create a superhuman intelligence. Shortly after, the human era will be ended. This logic works like this. Right now, we can create computers whose computational power is much greater than anything the human brain can process. Computers can't think the way we do yet, but they can process information much faster than any human being can, and it's not even close. At some point, though, we will create a genuine artificial intelligence, and that AI will be able to start creating its own computers. So, if supercomputers can create supercomputers, and those things can then create supercomputers, you see where I'm going with this. And this process, according to Vinge, once it happens, once it starts, the singularity will happen quick, like that. Now, some of you may have already started doing the math. If Vinge made his claim in 1993, then 30 years after 1993 is going to be 2023. So, bad news is, you all might have to start serving your iPhones breakfast in bed in the morning pretty soon. Good news is, none of you have to worry about paying off your student loans. So, there's the trade-off there. Anyway, A few other people are out there who have argued that a hard singularity is imminent. One of them is Ray Kurzweil. He founded this place called the Singularity Institute for Artificial Intelligence, which is designed to help develop a safe AI so that when humanity does finally become obsolete, it's not like this Terminator 2 situation where all the machines take over and kill everybody. Needless to say, though, there are a few doubting Thomases out there about this whole hard singularity business. They like to dismiss the whole notion by calling it the rapture of the nerds, which is just great geek trash talk. So this hard singularity thing is not widely accepted by any means. And some people have also criticized the whole notion through its similarity to eugenics. Eugenics is also related to Darwin's theory of evolution, and it's this notion that you can improve humanity's genetic stock by certain selective breeding and procreation practices. So the idea goes all the way back to 1883, and people like George Bernard Shaw, who was this Nobel Prize-winning British playwright, he believed in a Disney-fied version of eugenics. Unfortunately, the Nazis also believed in eugenics, and their version, definitely not Disney-fied. Anyway, there's also in posthumanism, especially science fictional posthumanism, a common post-apocalyptic vein, where humanity gets completely wiped out by whatever comes afterwards, like in the Terminator franchise. But there's also a lot of really interesting TV shows like Battlestar Galactica that add a fascinating twist on this whole idea of a robot apocalypse. Still, for our purposes in this class, we're not going to deal with those kinds of questions. For the two stories you guys will be reading, they won't be horrific, they won't be post-apocalyptic. Instead, they're going to have more of a, gosh, wow, that's kind of cool thing going on. And so we'll see if any of you guys agree with that gosh, wow, cool vibe, and we'll see how that goes. Thank you.